This is PRMG in the moment. Good morning, everybody. Paul Aceto here with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. We are at our 8th annual leadership conference, and this time we are in beautiful San Diego, California at the Marriott Marquis Hotel, and I'm here with a very, very special guest. In fact, I am here with Master of Ceremonies himself, Mr. Chris Sorensen. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Good
You're
to
a gentleman.
see you, brother. As you are as well. And so look, Chris, the main thing here, and I know you and I, we have a lot of history together. We work together
Every day.
Every day. And Chris has been hosting these and putting these events on for
8
quite
years.
some time. Yeah, 8 years. It's unbelievable. So in your own words, you guys decided to kind of switch the venue. How did that happen this year?
Interesting enough, all of our leadership conferences have been in California to date. We've talked about, obviously, and maybe next year we might have in a different state. But we were never able to come to San Diego because our typical time frame was always the week after 4th of July. And if any of you are Comic-Con fans, you will know that San Diego has taken over the second week of July with Comic-Con. And there's not a hotel in almost the entire county of San Diego that is available. And so we've held it from in the beginning years when we were a smaller entity. We held it at the corporate office and our campus there, and then we moved on to the wineries and in Temecula. And so this presented an opportunity. With COVID being what it was, we pushed it off until September, and that opened up the opportunity for San Diego. And listen, it's been a beautiful venue. Everyone's had a great time.
Amazing.
We had probably too much fun last night, obviously, bonding. We don't see people for what has now been 2 years. Yeah, we blew off a lot of steam, a lot of fun.
Yeah, last night.
I'm a little tired this morning.
And I will tell you, he's 100% correct on that. I actually let my hair down, what little hair I have, last night as well. So yeah, absolutely beautiful venue. You couldn't ask for better. So Chris, look.
Yes, sir.
You've been, there were so many topics you've been covering, and I've been sitting in on, I want to say 90% of the event, listening in. From your perspective, what is Leadership Conference all about essentially?
The idea is, the most important thing when we were initially talking about leadership with Steve Levine, our VP of the division, and Paul Rosa, our CEO, it was, look, we need to make sure that we stay together, we stay connected. And so that was the initial reason for all of us to get together, and it's probably, to this day, probably still one of the biggest reasons and benefits of leadership. But of course, if you're going to invest the time and energy and spend time away from your family and loved ones, you want to make sure that it's content rich. And so we spend countless hours, literally months, planning this to make sure that we show the respect that our managers deserve by making sure that they walk away with here with new tools, new talents, new skill sets to go out and lead their team, lead their communities.
I love that, and well said too, tools and talents. And learning from one another too. Some of the branch managers we interviewed on some of these, Chris, are actually gleaning from their peers. Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, sorry, when you said that, it triggered.
It's perfect.
Because we spend time with purposeful intent, structuring panels and panel topics. We put ourselves. One of the benefits of our company, our PRMG, is the fact that our founders and myself, we've walked many miles in our managers' moccasins. I was a top producing loan officer. I was a real estate agent. I was a top branch manager. And so I understand some of the struggles that they will go through. And so from that perspective, we look at it and we say, what could a panel do amongst their peer group to be able to share? If I'm talking to them, it's one thing. But when their peers, their current teammates, fellow managers are sharing with them their joys, their sorrows, their triumphs, it resonates.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch. It absolutely does resonate. And I will tell you too, me being in the audience and listening to Chris up there and the panels, Chris has a tremendous amount of experience. This guy literally was an originator himself. He's not that old. But at the end of the day, when you watch the dynamic and the chemistry, I like to say, it's just been absolutely phenomenal. The other question I was going to ask you, Chris, is this one of the larger attended events? Do we have I want to say 150, 160?
Yeah, I think the total count, is, well, according to the Marriott, it was 200, so I'm going to argue about that point when I get the bill.
Absolutely.
But I think we're about 175, and so this would make it the largest event. We did plan on 200 but because of COVID, there were some people that just didn't feel comfortable.
Of course.
And of course, we totally respect that and get that. But I think people, obviously, proof is in the pudding. People were so hungry and so starved for the opportunity to get together, get away,
yes, sir.
and again, have a great time and bond,
yeah.
that we had an extremely well-attended event. I'm excited.
Yes,
we
yes,
usually make this, just so everybody knows, we usually call this a mandatory leadership conference because we want to remove all excuses. We couldn't make this mandatory due to COVID. And yet, we still had an overwhelming crowd. So I think that speaks volumes about our team and about the content and what this leadership conference means to everybody.
Yeah, a huge hat tip your way, Chris, to that too. Because
it's a group effort, that's for sure.
It does take a village, guys, and I know we kind of touched on that. Now I'm going to kind of pull away from leadership for a minute because I want to talk to Chris about something. So one of the things that we were talking with our CEO, Paul Rozzo, founder, and I talked with some of the other owners, is, you know, in 2020 we were navigating a new virtual space.
Yes.
We all got our sea legs. Everybody was on Hollywood Squares. And then also...
I should have bought stock in Zoom.
God, do you know that actually crossed my mind? I'm not a stock person guy, but I actually thought, is anybody else thinking
well,
this too?
there are plenty of people did, and they made plenty of money.
You know it. So what I was gonna bring up is Paul Rozzo always says a rising tide lifts all boats. He uses that adage, that phrase. And I know that PRMG rose with the tide, as did many other entities in our business.
Yes.
But is it fair to say to you, Mr. Sorensen, how we navigated those waters? How we navigated those waters and leveraged it. I was curious
100%.
what your thoughts.
No, sorry, first off, I have to tell you, I'm smiling because Paul Rozzo is going to love, as a person who owns a very large boat, he's going to love your analogy and your euphemisms there. Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, look, there are a lot of great companies, and Gary Mallis, who I know that you've interviewed, probably is the best person to have been able to address that because he did for the conference. He actually shared with everybody how we did navigate. There are many competitors out there that do not run their organizations the way that we do, and sadly, many of them went out of business in 2020. And so that was, you don't like to see that happen to your competitors. Friendly competition, obviously.
It's good.
Absolutely, it's good. Iron sharpens iron. We are in a strong position because of our strong leadership. This company has never had any debt. We are financially well-heeled. We're one of the top 20 lenders in America for a reason. And we literally, without being revealing, because we are privately held, we can weather literally any storm.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we went through 2008, the Great Recession. By the numbers, we're worse than the Great Depression. But,
yes, sir.
That's another story. But we came out, and that's when we had our exponential growth
factor.
because
yes,
we could, because we had the resources, and Paul and Robert have insisted they've always planned way ahead.
Wow.
They're always 10 chess moves ahead.
You know what? I mean, you can't say better than that. Chris knows the history.
Yep.
He's ingrained. He's part of the woodwork in the company, as many others are too. We have quite a committed team of people, immense leadership that care. And to me, that just speaks volumes, as Chris said earlier, about the company.
And nobody's interviewed you, but let me just say this for the people that are watching. You too, obviously, are rooted. You are part of the culture.
Thank you.
And, but to a different degree, you have protected the brand, passionately so. You've shaped the image, if you will, of PRMG. And you've made PRMG appear, quite frankly, larger at any given point in our tenure than we were.
Thank you.
And that takes real talent. And so we're very blessed to have you.
Wow, thank you.
And as I said, I wanted, when we were talking about this, I said, man, there's nobody better ever. He's always done this from day one, but nobody's better than Paul Aceto of handling these type of interviews. And so
humbling.
I feel blessed to be a part of your team.
Thank you. Right back at you, Chris. Okay, I want to finish with one last question for Mr. Sorensen, because being that he was an originator, and I really appreciate that, Chris. So what can a new branch manager garner from this event, from your perspective?
Look, from my perspective, I mean, gosh, literally, if I was a new branch manager, I would have been glad to pay to have been to this event.
Right.
The amount of talent in one single room,
yes,
and the amount of information that's being exchanged is unheard of. I mean, literally, people will go out and they'll spend, I've done it, $10,000 for a weekend to be able to be with people like this.
Wow.
And be able to collapse time frames. The trial and error doesn't have to occur when you have people that you can mirror. And in a setting like this, you get to look at, take the best, leave the rest, I always say. In a meeting like this, you get to see the top people in the United States working for PRMG. In many cases, they were top in their former companies, came here, and so they're bringing massive amounts of experience that you can glean virtually anything from. How you're going to originate, how you're going to manage, how you're going to recruit, how am I going to handle the finances?
There you go.
I mean, I get goosebumps. I think if I was a new branch manager, I'd be writing thank you cards to all of them.
And you had your 8 key points too, which I'd put on my cell phone.
We talked about, and I don't have them all memorized right now, so don't put me on the spot. But I will just say this: we talk about things. Well, absolutely, because look, good artists imitate, great artists steal. Attributed to Leonardo da Vinci. And so we build upon each other. And so when I was preparing myself for this week, I wanted to make sure that I shared some phenomenal secrets of success. And there are people who are extremely successful, and they've broken things down into bite-sized chunks and bite-sized pieces. And I think that's what we try to impart on everybody. Keep it simple. It's not overly complicated. Here are some basic blocking and tackling things that you can do. Awesome. And literally, if you paint by the numbers, you'll be successful as well.
100%. And Chris, we all have our little slogans and taglines and things that we say, but he always says, serve for success.
100%.
And you know what? I think that is one thing that always resonated with me that Chris said, because I always come from that perspective myself. I always feel like we're here to serve. We want to remain committed to those that we serve. And I think all of us, Chris Sorensen, I have to tell you something. I got a lot of feedback from people on what a masterful master of ceremonies you are, and what a great event you've put together with your teams.
Yes,
and
team
I'm
effort.
just proud to be a part of it, brother, and proud to know you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you.
This is Paul Aceto, and I will see you in the next PRMG in the moment.